You know, every single day, we're just bombarded with this constant stream of information from all over the world. It's this chaotic mix of headlines, alerts, and updates. But what if, instead of just a list, you could actually see it all laid out on a map? Today, we're unpacking a tool that does exactly that.
No, really, think about it for a second. How do you see what's going on? Is it through a social media feed that an algorithm serves up for you? Or maybe a news site you trust? Or is it just a flood of notifications buzzing on your phone? We all have our own little window onto the world. But today, we're going to look through a very, very different one. Earthquake. Stolen car.
Protest, you see? They're just disconnected events happening all at once. It can feel like pure chaos.
Okay, so let's dive in. Imagine, instead of that list of headlines, you've got this map where every single one of those events just pops up, right where it's happening, as it's being reported. A map that kind of puts you in the driver's seat, letting you be the one to connect the dots.
All right, so the platform we're digging into is called Live UMap. And what we're going to do here is basically decode how this live map works and, maybe more importantly, what it tells us about the world we're living in. So here's the basic idea. It's an open data platform. That just means it's grabbing information from a ton of different public sources. We're talking everything from established news agencies and police scanners all the way to social media posts. It then takes all those reports about conflicts, natural disasters, you name it, and pins them on an interactive world map. It gives you this real-time, geographic view of the news.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because the map kind of creates its own visual language. You know, complex events get boiled down into these simple, easy-to-understand icons. A little police car symbol? That's police activity. A crowd icon signals a protest. An explosion for, well, explosions. It's like a quick visual shorthand, so you can see at a glance what's going down on the ground.
So to really get a feel for how this works in the real world, let's start with a wide-angle view. We're going to zoom into the feed for California, which is just this perfect example of a chaotic, totally unfiltered snapshot of daily life in a state with like 40 million people.
I mean, just look at this list, and this is all pulled from the feed within a single 24-hour period. You've got a minor earthquake, a stabbing, a mountain rescue, a very specific motorcycle theft, a city clearing an encampment, a federal arrest, and a fatal car crash. It's everything all at once with absolutely no filter.
And this quote, this perfectly shows you the level of raw, nitty-gritty detail we're talking about. This isn't some polished news report. It reads like it's straight off a police scanner. You've got the law enforcement jargon like Code 9 and 1029V, and you even get the suspect's alleged street name, Lotus. It's just immediate and completely unfiltered.
Okay, so here's a really crucial point. This one platform can give you totally different kinds of insights depending on where you look. That California feed, that gives us breadth, a wide snapshot. But the map can also give you depth and focus. So now let's jump over to Minnesota, and you'll see how the feed can build a completely different kind of story.
Now, in Minnesota, the story is completely different. Instead of that random mix of daily events, the feed is laser-focused on one single escalating situation, a series of protests and counter-protests happening in Minneapolis. Here, we're zooming way in.
What's amazing is that the feed lets you watch this whole thing unfold step by step. It starts with reports of two groups facing off. Then, a few hours later, a brawl breaks out. Then, police are forming a blockade. And finally, you get this startling report that active-duty military units have been put on alert. You can literally scroll back in time on the map and watch the tension ramp up hour by hour.
And yeah, as you follow that timeline, you can see the reports from the ground getting more and more intense. The information isn't just about crowds anymore, but about the specific tactics people are reportedly using.
And here is a perfect example of that, a report, in all caps, claiming rioters are using frozen water bottles as weapons. This is exactly the kind of raw, unverified, boots-on-the-ground report that gets posted directly to the map. It gives you that immediate and sometimes jarring sense of what's being said in the moment.
Okay, now this is really, really important to understand. The language you see here, the platform itself isn't making these calls. It's aggregating reports from different sources, and those sources come with their own labels. So you see terms like leftist anti-ICE protesters, or anti-ICE agitators, or conservative influencer, and rioters, often describing the same people. The map just becomes a mirror, right? It's reflecting the language and, yeah, the biases of the very sources it's pulling from.
And then the situation escalates to the point where a very concrete action is reported. National Guard personnel that were mobilized to support local police have been put on active duty for a minimum of 72 hours. This one number, it just adds this significant layer of official gravity to everything that's unfolding on the map.
So, okay,
You've got the wide, chaotic snapshot of California on one hand and the deep, focused narrative of Minnesota on the other. When you bring these two together, you start to see this really powerful and kind of complicated new way of looking at the news. It's a truly unfiltered worldview. So, what's the big takeaway from all this? Well, it really comes down to a fundamental trade-off. The power of a tool like this is its immediacy. You get that raw, ground-level information as it's being reported. But that's also the peril. It often lacks the context, the nuance, and the verification that you'd get from traditional journalism. And without that framework, it can easily create a really skewed perception of reality. A world that feels way more chaotic than it might actually be.
And that leaves us with one last really big question. You know, in a traditional news setup, you have editors, but on a platform that's just giving you raw, unfiltered data, that role completely changes. So in a world of raw data, where you're the one scrolling, you're the one connecting the dots, who's the real editor? Does that job ultimately fall to you?